Welcome to Wild Spirits Outdoors, the place for real hunting talk, tactics, and a few laughs. Now, let's dive in with your host, Brad Dejon.
Hey guys and gals, welcome back to Wild Spirits Outdoors. This is episode 3, number 3, baby. Here we go. It's if you're listening to this on the day of the release, it is August 12th, 2025. Today we're going to talk about something that I really enjoy doing, and that is stepping outside the state lines and hitting some DIY whitetail hunts in some neighboring states. A lot of hunters spend their entire hunting life, their hunting career, whatever you want to call it, on the same property, same farms, same situation, same blind. Oftentimes, they've got this one spot and that's just where they hunt. There's nothing wrong with that. I love the tradition of that. And I still hunt many of the same hunts that I've hunted for many, many years. But if you're looking to try something new, or even better yet, let's say it's not even November yet and you've already tagged out here in the state of Michigan, or if you live in Ohio, wherever you live, let's say you've tagged out already and we haven't even hit prime time, right? Let's step out and let's grab our bags. Let's not forget our tags and let's go hit another state. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that I've learned doing this. Hoping it will translate over and help some people out who are new to it. Maybe even some of the guys that have already done it, maybe they'll pick up on something. And if this is something you've already done and you're very experienced in it, please, shoot me a message, Instagram, Facebook, through the website, whatever. After you listen to this, if there's something that I missed or there's something that you're like, hey, here's a good point maybe you didn't think about, please send that to me. I want to learn more. I am not an expert in all things. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm the jack of all trades, but an expert at none, as they say. So yeah, if you've got some tips or tricks that I missed, please drop me a message. And if it's something that's not covered already, I'll definitely give you a shout out and make sure that that's also brought into the fold, because like I said, there's more to it than what I got here. This is just some stuff that I've learned. So as we go through this, I'm going to talk about a lot of the overlooked things when it comes to planning these trips. When it comes to the financial aspect of it, how far do you want to travel? Are you going to go solo, or are you going to go with some buddies? Try to set expectations. This all comes into play, as well as the cost of tags. So we're going to look at it primarily through an OTC or an over-the-counter state, but we'll talk a little bit about some of the draw states out there as well. Again, I've got some show notes here. I'm flying solo. I don't want to end up on some crazy tangent, so bear with me as I go through this. But the first thing I want to talk about is why hunt another state. So let's look at this through the eyes of, to make this easy for this conversation, and it can also be extrapolated and used for other situations. But let's picture you live in southern Michigan, northwestern PA, northern Ohio, northern Indiana. Let's kind of look at it from that hub there. Why venture into another state? Well, it's simple. More hunting opportunities, right? Chances to learn more things. Deer do deer things, whether you're in Iowa or whether you're in West Virginia. But there's nuances to what these deer do based on the terrain they live in, the habitat, the hunting pressure, etc. So why I like to do out-of-state hunts, I'm going to kind of go through that list. I love the new landscapes. I love the adventure of it. I love trying to go in and figure new properties out. You get an opportunity to learn different deer behavior. Like I said, there's nuances based on where these deer are located. Hill country bucks act a little bit different than those swamp donkeys do. Like I said, they all do deer things, but they all have nuances to how they do it. Another thing I love about it, I love to network with other hunters. I love it when I'm in Indiana, or I'm in Ohio, or I'm in Wisconsin, and I'm hunting some public land, and I have an opportunity to catch up with somebody who I've never met. Shouldn't say catch up with them, but meet somebody who's doing the same thing I'm doing. Guys, so many people out there are more than willing to share their experiences, more than willing to share with you what's worked for them in those areas and what hasn't worked for them. And it's not just guys traveling. If you're respectful and you treat people the way you want to be treated, local guys can be a wealth of knowledge as well. And if they can feel you got that wild spirit and you're there to, really embrace getting out there and getting after the hunt, these guys can share some information with you. Another reason I love doing these out-of-state hunts is it's a twofold portion to this. I love to escape the hunting pressure of some of the haunts that I frequent. As we get later into the season, closer to that rut time or closer to the November 15th date here in Michigan where gun season kicks off and it can get pretty crazy out there. I like to get away from that and escape to different spots. So that's one aspect of it. I also, another aspect of it is getting away from those kind of stagnant hunting spots. I don't run into that too often because I don't hunt the same spot too terribly often, or frequently back to back to back, right? I bounce around a lot. That doesn't mean I won't go back to the same spot. It just means if I go in and I do a hang and bang and I don't have a lot of luck, when you're doing a hang and bang and you're literally scouting your way in until you find the spot you want to be, you're putting a lot of scent on the ground. So you can wear those spots out. If you find a spot and you're like, man, this is money, and you go in there day after day after day, you're going to wear that spot out just like you would on a private property, right? You can't just do the same thing over and over again. You're laying down a lot of scent, and those deer aren't stupid. And no matter what anybody says, we're not fooling their noses. So if you're going into the same spot repeatedly, you're laying down that scent. Deer are picking up on that. They're going to shift their patterns, or they're going to avoid that spot altogether if they feel like that scent is super fresh and it's continuous, just like if a predator was chasing them, because that's what we are. Another reason I like to do it is, aside from learning, aside from kind of getting away from the pressure, it's a decompression for me. There's no expectation necessarily. Now, there are certain aspects where I do have expectations because I have history in certain areas. So I know kind of what I'm expecting to see or what I want to see. So I do have those expectations. But there's situations where I go into a spot and I have no expectations. I don't know if I'm going to see a deer. I don't know if I'm going to see a squirrel, right? So it's decompressing for me to take that pressure off myself. I am not what I would consider a trophy hunter. I do like to shoot big bucks. I think we all like to shoot big bucks, but there's times where it's nice to just go into a spot and be like, hey, I don't know what's in here, but if something walks in and the old thumper gets to going, I might let one go. So that's a big portion of it too. I want you to think about this while we're going through this. If you could hunt anywhere outside of your home state, let's take like Kansas, Iowa, Illinois. Let's take those out of the picture. But if you could just, look at a map and say, man, I want to go hunt that state, drop me a line. Let me know what state that would be. If I've been there, I'm more than happy to share with you some of the experiences I may have had there, some of the good spots I've been into, some of the spots where I thought it was going to be good and I went in and found, everybody and their brother also likes that spot. So I would love to know if you guys could pick a spot to go, where that would be. You don't have to tell me the county. You don't have to tell me the hunting unit you're going to, but just tell me the state. I'd love to know. I've been to a few of them, so I'm happy to share what I've experienced. All right, so let's talk about picking the state. When it comes to this, and we're doing DIY, and we're trying to look at this without spending a ton of money, right? This isn't guided, so we're not looking at spending big money for outfitter guide fees, all that stuff. This isn't a $5,000 hunt. We're trying to keep this at a reasonable price. I like to try to keep all of my DIY hunts outside of the tag. I like to keep them, 500 or less. When you're going to an outfitter, you can easily spend, let's say, between $300 and $7,500. So $3,000 to $7,500. That's a lot of money for a 5-day hunt. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have any issue with going to an outfitter. It's just it's a money thing. So if I can get 3 or 4 out-of-state hunts in for the same price that I can get maybe one slightly cheaper side outfitted hunt in, I am all about that. we're going to look at how to pick that state. Okay. We're going to take into consideration travel distance. That's a big factor of it. How much time is it actually going to take me to get to this spot? We're going to talk about season dates. Do we want to go early season? Do we want to go kind of closer to that rut situation? Or do we want to go late season? They all have their benefits. They all have their pros. They all have their cons. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. We're going to talk about making sure we know regulations and weapon restrictions. That's stuff that people oftentimes overlook. You got to make sure you know the rules and respect the rules in the states that you're going to hunt. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of the rough costs of these over-the-counter, out-of-state, non-resident tags, and we'll also talk a little bit about some of the draw states and what those cost. So let's break it down real quick. For a quick example, I live in the state of Michigan, so I'm a Michigan resident hunter. For a non-resident to come to Michigan, and I know that probably gets some chuckles from some people. Why would I want to spend money to go to Michigan? Guys and gals, I'm telling you, if you're willing to put in some work and really put your maps to use, study some maps, look at some spots. There is so much public land here in Michigan. You can definitely run yourself into some great hunting, and you can run yourself into some good deer. So non-resident tag for the state of Michigan. These are ballpark figures, so please don't hold me to these numbers, but I want to give you a rough idea. If you're a non-resident to Michigan, your tag is going to cost you roughly $200. For somebody like myself, who's a Michigan resident looking to go outside of here, an Ohio non-resident tag is going to run me roughly $250. An Indiana tag, same thing, around $250. Wisconsin, about $200. I don't know if they still do it, but years ago, and I haven't been to Wisconsin since I think 2012 was the last time I hunted there. But if you're a first time hunter to Wisconsin, at least back in 2012, I don't know if it's still the same now. You'd have to check on it. But they were offering like an incentive. So if it was your first time or you hadn't been to Wisconsin in, I think it was 10 years, they took that over-the-counter fee tag and they dropped it substantially. I think back in 2012, I hunted Wisconsin as a non-resident for like $75 was my tag. Illinois is an interesting one. It's not necessarily over-the-counter, but it really is over the counter. You apply for the tag. Illinois is an expensive one. We're talking $500-ish for a non-resident tag. Pennsylvania, that's on the cheap side. A lot of people compare Michigan and Pennsylvania to one another when it comes to the stigma around those two states. Very high hunting pressure. We probably have per capita more hunters than any other state in the union. So the tags in Pennsylvania, excuse me, I got to itch my face. The tags in Pennsylvania, they're running like $120-ish for a non-resident tag. Missouri is another somewhat overlooked state when it comes to over-the-counter non-resident tags. Your tag's going to run you right around that $300 mark, but there's a lot of great opportunity in the state of Missouri. Minnesota, guys, believe it or not, I'm pretty sure this is still factually accurate. Minnesota still currently holds the number one spot for Boone and Crockett bucks taken. And it's really it's a state that doesn't really come across a lot of people's radar when it comes to a destination place to go hunting. But a tag there is pretty reasonable. You're looking at around $200, and there's a lot of public land there. It's a state that's on my hit list. I haven't been there yet, but it's one that I'm looking to go to. So those are kind of, again, looking at this region, we're talking, the Rust Belt region. These are states that are within that 8-hour drive range to get to. If you want to venture a little bit further, there's a couple of great states. We all know Iowa and Kansas. Both of those states are draw states, and you're going to have to plan ahead because you got to put in for the lottery. You got to get your points to get into them. Iowa, you're looking at right around that $650 range to get that tag. You do have to pay for your application. I don't recall what that is. I want to say it's around $70, $80 maybe. Similar in Kansas, and a Kansas over-the-counter. I'm sorry, a Kansas lottery tag, once you actually get the tag through the point system, is right around $500. So when you're planning this hunt, one thing I like to do is I like to look at how many hunts I want to do. Again, I like to try to get in a couple 3 out of state hunts every year. Doesn't always happen, but I like to plan for it. So you want to try to maximize or get the biggest bang for your buck. So looking at these states and writing these tag costs down right off the bat, and it can really help you narrow down your choice as far as how much you're looking to spend and how many hunts you want to do. So you go through, you write all these down, and then you start going through some of the other stuff we're going to talk about. It can help you break down budget wise. What's my budget? Is my budget $500? Is my budget $1,000? What's my budget? This will help you kind of narrow that down, and it'll help you select some states. We talked about the tag system over the counter versus like a draw state or a lottery state or a point state. Just keep that in mind. I really like the over the counter states. Again, expectations are going to come into play. I don't expect to go to Pennsylvania or Kentucky and have a 180-inch deer walk out in front of me. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Just you want to set your expectations and be realistic with what you're expecting to get out of the hunt. So you write down all those states, you think about your budget, then you start trying to think about, okay, how am I going to find a place to hunt? The various states have their DNR websites, oftentimes have maps or dedicated sites letting you know what's public land, what's available to hunt. So you've got county land, you've got state land, you've got national forest land. When you're going on to any of these, make sure you know the county regulations or the state regulations or the federal regulations that apply to hunting those properties. Some of them have walk-in rules. Some of them have sign-in rules. Some of them have parking rules. Make sure you research and know all of that ahead of time so you don't get in trouble with Mr. Green Jeans. In addition to the public land, a lot of states have walk-in programs, or like in Michigan, we call them HAP, H-A-P, hunter access programs. That's private land that is open to public hunting. Many of those HAP programs, whether it's in Michigan or other states, some have a limit on how many hunters can be out there at a time. Some of them you have to apply to get into. Some of them it's first come, first serve. Most all of them at every access point will have a box with a book, and you have to sign in when you go in. And there's places where you can leave notes just to help other people out. So you've got the walk-in programs. Obviously, we all have digital tools. We've got Onyx, Hunt Stand, Spartan Forge. The Drury's Deercast has mapping software on it. Those are great tools to look at it from a 30,000-foot view and kind of see the state and say, okay, there's little pockets of public here and there. There's a huge pocket of public land here, and it can help you kind of narrow down the areas you want to look into. And spend some time looking at those maps. Start picking up on some minute features within those maps, things that you're looking for in a spot to go in and try to go in and get this done. There's also private land access. Maybe it's not inside of a hunter's access program. It's not public, or it's not private open to public, but there's nothing wrong, guys, with making some phone calls, going old school and going snail mail, writing some letters, or if you have the opportunity to actually drive down near some of these areas you're looking at. A lot of times when I'm going in, I'm starting at public land, but I'm looking at private land around the area, and I'm finding landowner names, and I'm not against calling them up and letting them know, hey, I'm intending to come in and hunt in your general area, and I would love to have the opportunity to hunt your property if you would allow me to do so. And when it comes into that, make sure you're very respectful. If you can do it, offer to come in. A lot of times farmers, they'd love some extra help. So offer to come in in the late summer, early fall, before season opens. Come down there and spend a day working, baling hay or whatever they need done. That can go a long ways with these guys. So yeah, be respectful. But the worst they can tell you is no. They might tell you no in various degrees of niceness, but that's the worst they can do is tell you no. So keep that in mind. You don't have to be pigeonholed into only hunting properties that are open to public. You can go and knock on doors, make phone calls, etc. So I've scored some permission on out of state properties that were private properties. If you've had success doing it, I would love to hear from you as well. Again, drop me a line, Facebook, DM, through the website, whatever, comment on this. Share a little bit of what's worked for you. Again, you don't have to give specifics. We're not all trying to give away our secret sauce, but it can help other people out there that are trying to learn as they go as well. Let's talk about timing the hunt. We talked about it when we first introduced this. What time of year do I want to go? Am I looking to go early season? Am I looking to hit that rut? Am I looking to go late season? They all have their benefits. They all have their pros and cons. I've done them all. I've done early season hunts out of state. I've gone in and tried to hit the peak rut action on out of state hunts, and I do a lot of late season hunts out of state as well. So real quick, I'm going to try to break down for you a little bit of what you get out of those. Very similar to what you get, in your home state as well, I'm sure. So those early seasons, some of these states open up in like August, guys. So if you ever wanted to shoot a velvet buck and you live in a place like I do in Michigan, the odds of me shooting a velvet buck are slim to none. Unless there's a genetic freak out there that just hasn't shed his velvet by October 1st, there's not very many velvet bucks running around. But there's states I can go to if a velvet buck's on my list, which it is, and I have not done yet, but I'm definitely looking to do so. There's states out there that you can go to and try to take a buck in velvet. So that's a great benefit to the early season. Obviously, another benefit, just like again, for most people, no matter where they're hunting, deer are still quite patternable in the early season. A lot of times bucks are still somewhat bachelor grouped up. They have a pretty common routine going. Their bed to feed pattern's pretty easy to predict. So if you can get down there and you got 5 to 7 days to hunt, there's a good chance just with some glassing. You might be able to figure out what these bucks are doing, move in on them, and capitalize on that repeatability of their patterns. The rut, obviously, I don't care what anybody says. I love hunting all phases of the season, but when it comes to just pure excitement and not knowing what's going to happen, you cannot beat, let's say October 24th to November 20th. You can't beat that time of year. You're either early in the rut action where bucks are really starting to get active. They're moving a lot. They're checking scrapes a lot. Then you start getting closer to the peak rut activity, and they're hound dog and does. They're scent checking bedding areas. You kind of hit that quote lockdown phase. The lockdown phase can also be great even when you're out of state. I should say, especially when you're out of state, because on some of these bigger tracts of public land, not every buck's locked down, right? So there could be some great opportunities for a buck who's fresh off a doe and he's out cruising. So that's a great time to be out there. And then you get later in the rut, closer to that, late-ish November, and these bucks are getting desperate. They go all year with one thing on their mind, and they get a very short window to do that. Guys, you know what I'm talking about. So imagine if you only had, let's say, 4 weeks to do what these bucks want to do. You'd be going crazy too. So when it starts tailing off and there's fewer and fewer does in heat, these bucks get desperate and they can put on some miles, and they're on their feet a long period of the day. So that late rut season is also exciting. Then you get into the late season. Let's talk, let's say, December 5th on through the end of the season. So that could vary. It could be January, pushing into February for some states. Most bucks are done rutting. There's still a few straggler does that are coming into heat. So there is still an opportunity for a little bit of potential rut action. But a lot of these bucks are physically worn down. They've been at it hard and they're looking to recoup. So they're not moving a ton. They're not moving long distances, but usually they're bedding pretty close to food sources. So if you can find food sources, whether it's ag or public land food plots, mast crops, acorns, things like that. If you can find that, and you can figure out a way to get in there and set up on that, you can have really good success on these bucks later in the year when they're desperate to get some carbs and some calories back into them because they know they got to survive the winter. So those three aspects of it, those three phases, early, mid, late season, they all have their benefit. When it comes to traveling, you also got to remember early season, a lot of times, you guys, it's still freaking hot, right? September, October, it's not uncommon in this Midwest region, we'll call it, to see temperatures, 70, 80. Sometimes you're hitting 90 degrees. There's peaks and valleys in there, but it can be hot. The bugs can be bad. There's still a lot of foliage up, so visibility is not as good as it could be. Then when you get into that middle of the season, weather can be quite unpredictable. You can have varying temperatures very quickly throughout different days in November. It could be 60 one day and it could be 20 the next day here in the Midwest states. So you got to think about that when you're planning this hunt. Make sure you pack accordingly. Your hound dog and the weather leading into that time when you're going to travel. You really want to try to figure out what the weather is going to be. And you got to account for that. You could get rain. You could get massive amounts of snow. You could be hitting a really warm spot. And that's just part of the game we play. And you got to figure out how to work around it. And then obviously late season, you can run into anything from extreme cold temperatures to it could be really cold and you could go down and you could hit that warm snap and it could be raining or it could be, freezing rain. There's all kinds of things that could be happening. So you got to take that all into account and really think about what it is you want out of that hunt. If you want to go for that opportunity for crazy action, obviously the rut's going to go, kind of in line with what you're looking for. If you're looking for an opportunity to get in there and pattern something in a short amount of time because you don't have forever to be there, you got, let's say 5 to 7 days. Maybe that early season's better for you or the late season. So things to think about as you're going. So plan your trip accordingly, not only based on what it is you want out of the hunt, but also what the weather could be for you there. Let's talk a little bit about, the length of the trip, the cost of the trip, and setting your expectations for the trip. I'm going to take a little drink here, wash my mouth out. There we go. So trip length. When it comes to these out-of-state hunts, for archery season, I'm always trying to target a minimum of 5 days. I feel like in 5 days in a new spot, I can probably get it figured out and at least get myself in the game. Nothing's guaranteed, but in 5 days, I feel like that gives me enough time to figure enough out to get myself in the game. If I can swing it, I'd love to get 7 days. But again, I try to get 2-3 of these in a year. So depending on how much vacation you have, depending on what your job responsibilities are, how frequently you can take that time off, this can all play into it, right? So if you've only got a couple weeks off and you got a family, obviously you gotta make sure to do the wife and kid thing too, right? You got to make sure to keep the family happy. You want to spend time with them too. So maybe don't take all of your vacation if you've only got a couple weeks and dedicate it all to hunting season. That's not going to win you any brownie points with the wife. So something to think about there. If you've been established at your job for a while and you're fortunate enough to have 4, 5, 6 weeks of vacation, you might be able to take 2-3 weeks of that vacation and break it up into different aspects of the fall season and get yourself a few hunts in. So that 5 to 7 day range is great. I try to plan for a minimum 5 days of hunting and then a day of travel to and a day of travel back. So you got to remember that too. Try to plan your travel accordingly. If you can leave and try to maximize your vacation too, right? If you've got, let's say you have 80 hours of vacation and you're going to dedicate 40 of it to hunting, that's 5 8-hour days. So if you went Monday through Friday, that's 40 hours of vacation right there. But let's say you leave after work, you work first shift, you leave Thursday after work. So you get out of work at 4:00, you got everything packed, you get home, you're on the road by 6 p.m. So you got a 6-hour drive. You arrive by midnight. You're hunting Friday. So you've only taken one day of vacation. Now you get Friday, that's a day of vacation. Saturday, Sunday, those are weekends, unless you're mandated to work them. Those don't count against your vacation. So then you can get in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, travel back home Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then you get an extra 2 days to hunt, or an extra day to hunt, and then a day of travel back before you get back to work on Monday. So I try to plan my hunts around that so I can maximize the amount of time I get hunting versus the amount of vacation days I have to take. Again, like we talked about, be flexible based on weather, how much scouting you think you're going to have to do, and be willing to adjust your plans. And if you have a job that allows you to, and you have flexibility, and because these are DIY and you're not, there's no outfitter there telling you've got these 5 days are your days to hunt, and that's what you get. You can be a little flexible if your job allows. And if you're approaching that, 5 days before your hunt, and you're looking at the 10-day or 15-day forecast, and it's looking like it's just going to be trash, if your job allows for it, call the boss man up and be like, hey, Mr. Boss Man, I know I was going to take next week off, but the weather's looking terrible for what I'm planning to go do. Can I bump that vacation another week? So if you have that flexibility, that can really help out as well. Let's think about some assumptions. Let's think about drive time. So I try to keep everything under an 8-hour drive. We're looking at this as a DIY hunt. We're not paying an outfitter. We're not stuck to an outfitter's rules as far as what days we have to be there. We're looking at lodging to be budget friendly. Guys, you can rack up a lot of money on your housing or your accommodations on these out-of-state hunts if you're not planning accordingly. So there's different ways you can go about this. You can truck camp, you can tent camp. That's going to be your cheapest ways, but it's also going to require more planning. It's going to require more gear. One thing I like to do is look at the old no-tell motels. A lot of these little towns will have the little, tiny motels, $40-$50 a night. Those work for me. And another great thing to do, Airbnbs, especially in the fall, in a lot of these more rural areas, that's off season. And a lot of times you can get really great rates on Airbnbs. So I look at those as well. Think about gas, what you're driving. You can do these, doesn't matter what you drive. If you pack accordingly, you can do it in a Kia or you can do it in a GMC 2500. But definitely make sure you're accounting for gas. I try to plan basically for 3 tanks of gas, one to get there, one for all the driving I'm going to do there, and one for the drive back. So in my GMC, I'm looking at basically $300 is what I'm budgeting for gas. Usually I don't use that all, but I try to plan for that. On the lodging side, again, if you're tent camping or truck camping, you can get into some sites that are pretty cheap. A lot of these rustic, no power, no frills camping sites on some of these state parks or whatever. You can get into those in the off season really cheap, $20 a night maybe. Cheap motels, those can range anywhere from $40 to $100 a night. $100 a night can get pretty expensive. And then Airbnbs, again, off season, you can oftentimes pick up an Airbnb. So you got a hot shower to come to, you've got a kitchen to cook in, and you got a warm bed to crawl into. And you can oftentimes find those at a pretty reasonable price during this hunting season, which is the off season for them for a lot of what they offer. Make sure you're keeping in mind the cost of groceries or food. When I do these out-of-state hunts, I'm not going out to eat. I pack a 110 quart cooler. And my plan is I pack it full of food. That's what I'm going to eat while I'm there. Hopefully, that thing is dwindling rapidly so that I have room in that cooler, depending on what time of year it is, to pack a deer in it to bring it back. We're not going to get too much into this in this particular conversation, but remember, a lot of states have rules about what you can bring back in from an out-of-state hunt. For example, in Michigan, if I shoot a deer out of state and I want to bring the meat and the rack back into the state of Michigan, I have to be fully caped. No brain matter, no spinal cord can come back in. So I have to cape and quarter and make sure I remove the brain matter before I bring that back into the state of Michigan. And you need a place to put it, especially if you're doing early season or maybe even a November hunt where temperatures can fluctuate. If it's something that you're obviously we want to bring that meat back, but if you're looking to bring a cape back and a rack back to get it mounted, you need to be able to accommodate for that. So think about that. I try to pack the groceries. I can usually get a week hunt in, and $80 gives me enough money to buy all the groceries I need. I pack sandwiches. I don't eat a ton of different foods. I keep it pretty simple. A lot of PB&Js, a lot of ham sandwiches, and protein shakes, things like that. Just stuff that I can make quickly, doesn't take up a lot of room, and I'm not crying at the end of the week that I got to haul my T-bone steaks back, right? If I got a couple pieces of bread left, I toss them to the birds. So that's how I like to plan that. If you're going to be camping, make sure you're also planning for ice, firewood, things like that. When it comes to ice, another great tip is grab some gallon milk jugs, clean them out really good, fill them full of water, throw those bad boys in the freezer. Those things take a long time to thaw out. They don't make the mess that bags of ice will make, and they're going to keep everything nice and cool for you. Let's see here. Another thing to think about, if you're not going to do this, or if you're interested in doing this, but you want to make this a little more budget friendly, invite some buddies. If you can get 2 or 3 guys in on this, you can drive the cost down significantly, especially when it comes to grocery, gas, and accommodations for where you're going to sleep. If you don't want to, tent or truck camp, you get 3 guys together and you get a hotel room for $100-$150 a night. 3 guys, that's $50 each a night. That's not too bad. Bring an air mattress, inflate it. A couple guys get a bed, 1 guy gets an air mattress, draw straws, box over it, whatever you got to do. But that's a way to keep that price down for hotels as well as Airbnbs. Again, meal prepping is important. I try to prep those out. I try to plan them. I keep it simple. Like I said, protein shakes, ham sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I usually try to give myself a couple of decent meals, but I like to pre-cook like some chili, and I put it in freezer containers, freeze it, so I can bring it, drop it in a pot on the stove, reheat it, and I've got something nice and hearty to eat. Chilies, stews, things like that. Usually I've got a little bit of venison left over from the year before. I like to bring a couple packages of that and cook me up some venison too. So I like to meal prep. Another tip I've learned is, after you've got this whole thing budgeted out, and let's just for the sake of argument, let's say your budget for this whole trip is $800. Plan for an extra $100 to $200. Just budget that in. Hopefully you don't need it, but budget it. Things can happen. You can blow a tire. Something can break down on your car. Things can happen where that extra couple $100 can come in handy. I don't know when it was, 4 years ago. I was in the middle of nowhere. I think I was in Ohio on my way to a hunt, and I was almost to where I was going to be hunting, and I blew a tire on my truck. I didn't blow a tire, but I ran something over, and I ran flat on my tires. So I swapped it out for my spare, threw the flat one in the back of my truck. I drove, I think, 30 miles out of my way to get into like a Walmart or something. Got a tire patch kit, fixed my tire, went over to a gas station, aired it back up. Now that didn't cost me $200, but if I'd blown a sidewall, I would have needed a tire, and that money could have come in handy. So budget yourself an extra $100, $200 just in case something breaks bad and you need that money. Also, again, guys, manage your expectations. We all want to go on an out-of-state hunt and shoot a monster buck, right? I mean, that's anybody that's going to spend the time to go do an out-of-state hunt. That's what they want to do. They're going to do it for the experience and for the opportunity to shoot a nice buck. Doesn't mean you're not going to go shoot a doe. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great. It's meat in the freezer, but I don't need to spend, $800, $1,000 to go do an out-of-state hunt to shoot does when I can fill my freezer with does in my home state. So, but manage those expectations. If you're really, really, truly wanting to go shoot let's say a 160 plus class deer, and you want the best opportunity at that, a DIY hunt on public land or knock on door private is probably not the way to go. You're better off saving your money and putting in for a Kansas or Iowa tag, and planning on spending $5,000-$7,000 to go do an outfitted hunt, or do a DIY hunt to one of those states where you might be able to get on some public land where a buck like that's realistic. So manage those expectations. Look at the historical data for these states you're going to, and you'll kind of know what you're running into. If you have a target in mind, say you've got a 140-inch minimum in your mind, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a 140-inch quality deer. Maybe Michigan's not the place to go for 5 days to try to get that done. Maybe you look at Indiana or Kentucky or Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, West Virginia, places like that where you might run into something like that. But if you're just looking for a great experience and, 100 to 120-inch deer is going to get you fired up, look at Michigan. Yeah, there's plenty of states you can go to find that, but manage your expectations and be realistic about it. So that's a key. When I first went to Ohio, guys that live in Ohio will probably laugh at this, but coming from the state of Michigan, and I know everybody has, they say certain aspects of where they hunt, where their home hunting is the hardest. Personally, coming from Michigan, the hunting here is tough. The hunting pressure, we've talked about it in past episodes. A lot of the property here is in very small chunks, so you get a lot of hunters per acre or per mile, let's say per square mile. A lot more hunters than you would in other areas that have larger expanses of private land. So when I would go to Ohio, I had these very high expectations, and I still do. When I go to Ohio, I do have higher expectations, obviously, than when I'm going to hunt certain places in Michigan. And that's because of what I've seen. So I have expectations set, but it doesn't mean that I'm not realistic about those. Am I going to public land in Ohio and expecting to shoot a 180-inch deer? No. Is it possible? Very much so. But am I looking for something a little more realistic? Absolutely. So just keep those in mind. Be realistic about your expectations. And when you're doing these, if there's a deer that walks in on day 1, day 2, whatever of your hunt, and it gets you excited, and it's something that you're like, man, if this was the last day, I'd take it, you better take that shot. Don't ever pass on day 1 what you'd shoot on the last day. That's a recipe to have you leaving with a tag and being pretty bummed out. And coming from experience, when you go on out-of-state hunts multiple times a year, or consecutive years to the same areas, and you're eating a $200, $250, $300 tag, the wifey starts asking questions when she's like, "Man, you're spending $300 for a 5-day hunt just on the tag, and you're telling me what you're passing and you're not shooting it." So be realistic. Make sure you know what you want. And if you have that opportunity to fill that tag on something that you'd be proud to do, make sure you do it. If you guys have ever been on a trip that you didn't fill a tag, I'd love to hear about it. I've got many. There's been many, many hunts I've gone on out of state where I did not fill a tag. But it's not always about filling the tag, guys. Yes, we want to fill it. If that opportunity comes, we want to capitalize on it. But there's been times I've gone on these out-of-state hunts and I didn't fill a tag, and it wasn't because I passed something up. I simply didn't have the opportunity. But you learn things. You learn things that will not only benefit you the next time you go there or the next time you go to another state, but you're going to learn things that are going to benefit you even back on your home turf. Like I said, these deer, they all do deer things. There's nuances to it based on the regions they live, the habitat they live in, but it's all learning experiences. So if you've ever been on an out-of-state DIY hunt, you didn't fill a tag, I'd love to hear a comment from you about what you learned, because I guarantee you learned something on that hunt. So we've picked a state, we've set our expectations, we've set a budget, we've got our accommodations, our food and everything kind of figured out. Now we got to put it all together. So let's start planning a timeline. You don't have to plan these things a year in advance. In fact, June, July of the year you want to do it, if it's an over the counter, that's a perfectly good time to plan these out. So even right now, I mean, we're middle of August. Um, you can still plan a great DIY out of state hunt to take place this year. You've got plenty of time to get that vacation in. So let's start putting it together. So this time of year, I'm looking to pick my state. I'm researching regulations on that state, and I'm setting a realistic budget for what I want to spend. Um, then, I don't buy my tags literally until I'm either to the state I'm going to or I'm on my way. Most oftentimes, if I can do it, I wait until I'm there. Again, things can happen when you're doing this. You don't want to get super excited, plan this hunt, buy your tag 3 weeks before you leave, and then, your kid twists an ankle or you twist an ankle or something breaks at the house and you got to fix it. And now you can't go on that hunt. Well, now you just dropped a bunch of money on a tag and you can't use it. So I plan on buying my tags when I get there, whenever possible. So this time of year, again, I'm picking the state. I'm researching the regs. I'm knowing what my budget's going to be. I'm looking to see how much that tag is going to cost, but I'm not buying it yet. What I'm going to be doing between now and about a week before I go on this hunt is I am e-scouting very, very hard. And if I have the opportunity, some of us do have this opportunity. I travel a lot for my real job, right? I do a lot of traveling. Some of it's by plane, some of it's driving, and I do a lot of driving through the Midwest region. So if I have if I'm going to be doing a hunt or planning on a hunt in Ohio or Indiana, and I have to go down there for work, if I have to leave there on a Friday, I might stay an extra night and just spend a Saturday kind of walking the area that I plan on hunting, seeing what I can pick up. But the e-scouting is huge. I'm poring over maps. I'm on Facebook, different groups. I know a lot of the information you get on them is BS, but there's still stuff you can pull out of there that's going to help you out. I'm thinking about lodging. I'm starting to look this time of year at Airbnbs, at hotels. What's the closest proximity to the areas I'm hunting? If I gotta drive 6 hours to get there, and then it's a 2-hour drive from the closest lodging to where I want to hunt, I might not be lodging at an Airbnb or at a motel. I might be truck or tent camping. So I start looking at that now so that I can plan for it accordingly. And then when it's go time, it's just, leading up to that time you're going to leave, that day you're going to leave, I'm watching the weather and I'm making sure I pack accordingly. It can be difficult. A lot of guys tend to really overpack. I know I did on my first few of these. I had way too much stuff with me because I was trying to make sure, I accounted for every possible weather scenario that could happen. Now I'm a little more relaxed about it. I've got better gear now, so I've got certain things that I can wear, and the temperature and conditions can vary, and I'm still comfortable in that clothing. So don't be afraid. Don't go into it thinking I'm going to overpack, but don't be afraid to make sure you pack for whatever you think is going to be necessary, as long as you can fit it all. And you'll start being able to hone that in as you get more experience with these. And then last but not least is, the day comes, it's time to go get there. Take that e-scouting you did, apply it to real world scenarios, get in there, hunt, and have a good time. It's fun to do, guys. If you have any questions, if this is something you've never done and you're interested in doing it, please, guys, drop me a comment on the Spotify or the YouTube or iHeart, or drop me a DM on Facebook, Instagram, shoot me a message through the website. If it's something you haven't done and you're interested in doing it, I would love to help you on that journey, and I think you would have a blast doing it. This is something you can do to expand your hunting horizons without spending thousands of dollars to do it. You can realistically go on a 8-hour or less drive time hunt for under $1,000, and that's including your tag price. You just got to plan it right. You got to budget for it, save for it, and pack smart. So that's my spiel on that, guys. I have a challenge for you. Pick one state you've never hunted. Start thinking about how to do it. even if you're not going to do it this year, start planting that seed in your mind. I want to go hunt Indiana. I want to go hunt Missouri. I personally want to go hunt Minnesota. So I'm going to plant that seed maybe for next year. I'm going to start thinking about that. What's that going to cost for a tag? How long is the travel time? Things like that. I'm going to plant that seed, and I'm really going to start focusing in on what I got to do to make that happen. And I'm going to start putting that plan together. So I ask you to do the same. If you get a plan together, again, shoot me a message. Let me know what you're thinking. Don't have to tell me the DMU or the hunt area you're going to, but let me know what state you're going to. If I've been there, I'll share whatever knowledge I have, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm willing to give it to you guys. So have a great week. If you're listening to this on the day it drops, which is Tuesday, on Monday, we announced the winners for the Wild Spirits Outdoors giveaway. We gave away 4 great prizes to 4 lucky winners. Check Facebook, Wild Spirits Outdoors, see if your name's on there. The first name gets drawn, gets their first pick of the 4 prizes. Second name second name drawn gets their pick of the last 3. Third name gets their pick of the last 2, and then the 4th draw gets the last prize remaining. So if you missed the live that we're doing yesterday, or the live that we did yesterday, check the Facebook page again, Wild Spirits Outdoors. See if your name was picked. Guys, it's August. Season's right around the corner. A lot of you that have kids are probably really close to youth season. Some states are already, or if not have, are already about to start their actual seasons. So if you haven't been, get out, shoot your bows. Go check those tree stands. Wear those lifelines, guys. Have fun. Be safe. Enjoy the wild outdoors. This is Wild Spirits Outdoors. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Wild Spirits Outdoors. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like, follow, and share wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us grow the tribe and keep on chasing the wild. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Spirits Outdoors, and also on YouTube at Wild Spirits Pod. You can also head over to www.wildspiritsoutdoors.com for more content. Until next time, chase the wild, feel the spirit,